The Observer. Chapter 1. The New Neighbor. The morning sun cast long shadows across Helena Carvalho's apartment as she sipped her coffee, gazing out at the building across the courtyard. At 38, Helena had grown accustomed to the quiet rhythm of her life: work at the forensic psychology clinic, evening walks, and the solitude that had become her refuge since the divorce 2 years ago. Her reflection in the window showed tired eyes framed by dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. The apartment on the 8th floor had been her sanctuary, high enough to feel removed from the city's chaos below, yet close enough to watch life unfold in the windows across the way. That Tuesday morning, everything changed. A flash of light caught her attention from apartment 804 in the opposite building. Someone was moving in boxes, furniture, the usual chaos of relocation. But what made Helena pause mid-sip was the deliberate way the new occupant positioned himself at his window, a pair of binoculars gleaming in his hands. He was watching her. Helena set down her mug and stepped back from the window, her heart rate quickening slightly. Professional instinct kicked in. She'd spent years analyzing behavior, reading people's intentions. This felt different from casual curiosity. Over the next hour, she found herself stealing glances toward the building. Each time, the figure remained at his post, binoculars trained on her apartment. When she moved to the kitchen, he adjusted his position. When she returned to the living room, he was ready. The afternoon brought an unexpected encounter. Helena was returning from lunch when the elevator doors opened to reveal a tall, gaunt man with pale eyes and graying hair slicked back severely. He wore an expensive suit that hung oddly on his frame, as if tailored for someone else. "Good afternoon," Helena offered politely, pressing the button for the 8th floor. The man's eyes fixed on her with unsettling intensity. "Dr. Helena Carvalho," he said, his accent faintly Eastern European. "I am Dr. Marcus Volkov. I believe we are neighbors now." Helena's blood chilled. She hadn't told him her name or profession. "I'm sorry, have we met?" His thin lips curved into what might have been a smile. "Not formally, but I make it my business to know my neighbors, particularly those in such interesting professions." The elevator climbed in uncomfortable silence. Helena noticed his hands, long, surgical fingers that drummed against his thigh in a precise rhythm. When the doors opened at her floor, she stepped out quickly. "Pleasant dreams, Dr. Carvalho," he called as the doors closed. That evening, Helena drew her curtains tight and double-checked her locks. Through a gap in the fabric, she could see the glow from apartment 804, and occasionally, the silhouette of a figure at the window. She was being watched, studied, catalogued, and somehow, Dr. Marcus Volkov already knew far more about her than any stranger should. Chapter 2. Photographs in the Darkness. Helena's sleep had become fractured, interrupted by brief flashes of light that penetrated even her blackout curtains. At first, she attributed it to passing cars or late-night construction, but the pattern was too regular, too deliberate. The third night, she positioned herself near the window around 2 a.m., peering through a small gap in the curtains. The building across the courtyard was mostly dark, save for the persistent glow from apartment 804. As she watched, a bright flash illuminated her living room. Someone was taking photographs. Helena's forensic training kicked into overdrive. She grabbed her phone and began documenting the flashes, noting times and intervals. Every 12 minutes, like clockwork, the camera fired, but the angle was wrong. The flashes seemed to come from impossible positions, as if the photographer was somehow inside her apartment. The next morning brought a horrifying discovery. Sliding an envelope from beneath a door, Helena's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were 8 photographs, all of her, all taken during the night. The first showed her sleeping, face peaceful in the moonlight streaming through her bedroom window. The second captured her in the kitchen at 1:47 a.m., getting water, a timestamp she remembered precisely. But the third photograph made her stomach lurch. It was taken from her bedroom closet, showing her lying in bed with perfect clarity. The angle was impossible unless someone had been standing inside her closet, watching her sleep. The remaining photographs were equally disturbing. Helena talking in her sleep, something she'd done since childhood. Her reaching for the glass of water with her eyes still closed. Her unconscious habit of checking her phone at 3:33 a.m. A detail she'd never shared with anyone. Each photograph included a timestamp and location marker, as if they were evidence in a case file. Her case file. Helena's hands shook as she examined the images more closely. The quality was professional, the lighting expertly managed. Someone had been inside her apartment, moving freely while she slept, documenting her most vulnerable moments. She immediately called a locksmith and security company. Within hours, her apartment bristled with new deadbolts, window sensors, and 3 discrete cameras positioned to monitor all entry points. The technician, a burly man named Carlos, frowned as he worked. "Lady, I gotta ask, you got someone specific you're worried about? Because this setup, it's like you're expecting a professional." Helena didn't answer directly. "Just make sure no one can get in without me knowing." That evening, she sat in her living room with all the lights on, laptop open to the security camera feeds. Across the courtyard, apartment 804 remained lit, and occasionally she caught glimpses of a figure moving past the windows. Her phone rang at exactly midnight. "Did you enjoy your photographs, Dr. Carvalho?" The voice was cultured, precise. "Dr. Marcus Volkov. How did you get inside?" "Oh, my dear doctor, you're thinking too literally. The mind can be accessed in so many ways. Sleep is just one doorway." The line went dead. Helena checked her security cameras frantically. All showed empty hallways, sealed windows, undisturbed locks. According to every piece of technology protecting her, no one had entered her apartment. Yet somehow, she knew with absolute certainty that she was no longer alone. Chapter 3. The Vanished Patient. Ricardo Mendez had been Helena's patient for 6 months, a successful executive whose anxiety attacks had begun interfering with his work and marriage. He was punctual, articulate, and responded well to cognitive behavioral therapy. His sessions followed a predictable pattern of progress and setbacks, nothing that raised red flags. Until his final session, Ricardo arrived 20 minutes early, pacing in the waiting room like a caged animal. When Helena called him in, his usual composed demeanor had cracked completely. "Someone's following me, Dr. Carvalho. Someone who knows things about me that I've never told anyone, not even you." Helena maintained her professional calm while noting the paranoid ideation. "Tell me about these experiences, Ricardo. When did they begin?" 3 weeks ago. I started noticing the same man everywhere. Coffee shop, parking garage, outside my apartment building. But it's not just seeing him. He left me notes." Ricardo produced a crumpled envelope from his jacket. Inside, Helena found a single sheet of paper with typed text. Ricardo, age 7, stole money from his dying grandmother's purse to buy candy. Never confessed. The guilt manifests as stomach pain during stress. Helena's professional mask slipped slightly. This level of specific detail about childhood trauma was exactly the kind of information that typically took months of therapy to uncover. "Has anyone else had access to your medical records? Previous therapists, family members?" "No one. And there's more." Ricardo's voice dropped to a whisper. "He knows about the accident." Helena waited. Ricardo had never mentioned any accident during their sessions. "When I was 16, I was driving with my girlfriend. We hit a cyclist. The man died, but my father paid off the investigating officer. I've never told anyone, but this person, he knows the cyclist's name, the exact date, even the weather conditions that night." The session ended with Helena recommending increased security measures and a psychiatric evaluation for potential medication. She scheduled their next appointment for the following week. Ricardo never showed up. When Helena called his office, his secretary said he hadn't been in for 3 days. His wife reported him missing after he failed to return from a business dinner. The police found his BMW abandoned in a parking garage downtown, keys still in the ignition. No signs of struggle. Detective Sandra Reyes interviewed Helena as part of the investigation. Did Mr. Mendez seem suicidal? Any indication he might disappear voluntarily? No, quite the opposite. He was paranoid about being followed, but that suggested he wanted to live, to solve whatever was happening to him. Helena paused. "Detective, did you find any notes or letters in his car or office?" "Why do you ask?" Helena described the note Ricardo had shown her during their session. Detective Reyes frowned and made notes. "We didn't find anything like that, but we did find something interesting in his computer browser history. He'd been researching someone named Dr. Marcus Volkov extensively in the weeks before he disappeared." Helena's blood turned to ice. "What kind of research?" "Medical license verifications, employment history, immigration records. Like he was trying to verify if this Volkov person was legitimate. Found a lot of contradictory information, apparently." That evening, Helena sat in her apartment, security cameras active, reviewing everything she knew about Dr. Marcus Volkov. He claimed to live in apartment 804, but she'd never seen him enter or leave that building. He knew her name and profession without introduction. He had somehow orchestrated the photographs taken inside her apartment. And now one of her patients, a patient who had been researching Volkov, had vanished without a trace. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Dr. Carvalho, your patient Mr. Mendez asked too many questions. Questions can be dangerous. I hope you'll be more careful. MV." Helena stared at the message, her forensic psychology training warring with rising panic. Someone was systematically dismantling her life, her sense of safety, her professional boundaries, and she was beginning to understand that Dr. Marcus Volkov was far more than just a strange neighbor. Chapter 4 echoes from the past. The call came on a rainy Thursday morning as Helena reviewed case files at her clinic. The receptionist buzzed through with uncertainty in her voice. "Dr. Carvalho, there's a woman online too. She says it's urgent, something about Dr. Marcus Volkov." Helena's coffee mug froze halfway to her lips. "Put her through." The voice was nervous, speaking quickly with a slight tremor. "Dr. Carvalho, my name is Laura Santini. I got your number from, well, that's complicated. But I need to warn you about Marcus Volkov." "How do you know Dr. Volkov?" "I was his patient 10 years ago in Chicago, before he moved to Sao Paulo, before he became whatever he is now." Laura's breathing was audible through the phone. "He nearly destroyed my mind." Helena grabbed a pen. "Can you be more specific? What kind of treatment did he provide?" "He called it immersion therapy. Said traditional methods were too slow, that he could cure trauma by recreating it under controlled conditions. He would put me in situations designed to trigger my specific fears, then force me to stay in them until I broke through to the other side." The description sent chills down Helena's spine. Such methods had been abandoned decades ago due to their potential for severe psychological damage. "Laura, I need to ask directly, did Dr. Volkov ever engage in any unethical practices? Anything that violated professional boundaries?" A bitter laugh echoed through the phone. "Professional boundaries? Dr. Carvalho. He broke into my apartment regularly. He would rearrange my belongings, leave notes, record my private conversations. He said it was part of the treatment, that he needed to understand my natural environment to properly help me." Helena's hand tightened on the receiver. The parallels to her own recent experiences were unmistakable. "How did your treatment end?" "It didn't end, it exploded. I developed severe panic disorder, worse than anything I'd had before seeing him. I couldn't leave my house for 2 years. When I finally tried to report him to the licensing board in Chicago, they said he'd never been licensed there. His credentials were fake." "Laura, would you be willing to meet in person? I think Dr. Volkov may be targeting me now, and your information could be crucial." A long pause. "Dr. Carvalho, I need you to understand something. Marcus Volkov isn't just unethical, he's dangerous. He doesn't just treat patients, he collects them. He studies how far he can push the human psyche before it breaks completely. Then it's even more important that we work together." "All right, there's a cafe called Estrella do Norte on Rua Augusta, near the subway station. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. I'll be wearing a red scarf." The line went dead. Helena immediately began researching Dr. Marcus Volkov's credentials. What she found was disturbing. Multiple professional licenses in different states and countries, some overlapping chronologically in ways that suggested fraud. Employment records that contradicted each other. Educational credentials from universities that had no record of him. Dr. Marcus Volkov appeared to be a professional identity built on fabrications. The next day, Helena arrived at Cafe Estrella du Norte 15 minutes early, positioning herself where she could watch the entrance. The afternoon crowd was thin. A few students with laptops, an elderly couple sharing pastries, business people grabbing quick coffees. 3 p.m. came and went. No woman with a red scarf appeared. Helena waited until 4 p.m. before calling the number Laura had used. It went straight to a voicemail message saying the number was no longer in service. Walking home, Helena couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, not just by Dr. Volkov from his apartment, but by eyes she couldn't locate, from angles she couldn't predict. That evening, she found a note slipped under her door. Dr. Carvalho, I'm sorry I couldn't make our meeting. Marcus knows about our conversation. He's coming for you next. Trust no one. LS. Helena examined the note under her desk lamp. The handwriting was shaky, written in obvious distress. But what disturbed her most was the paper itself. It was from her own notepad, the one she kept in her kitchen drawer. Someone had been in her apartment again, despite all her security measures. And Laura Santini, her potential ally, had vanished just like Ricardo Mendez. Helena was truly alone now, facing an adversary who seemed to have unlimited access to her life and the power to make people disappear. Chapter 5. Silent Invasion. Helena's apartment had become a fortress of paranoia. Motion sensors guarded every window. Cameras monitored each entry point, and she'd even placed flour on the floor near her bed to detect footprints. Yet the invasion continued, subtle and maddening. It started with small things. Her favorite coffee mug, always kept in the front of the cabinet, would appear in the back. Books on her nightstand would be stacked in different orders. Her bathroom mirror, which she always left spotless, would have a single fingerprint in the corner. The changes were so minimal that she questioned her own memory. Was she becoming paranoid? Losing track of her own habits? Then she found the evidence. Her security system recorded everything, storing footage in a cloud-based system. Reviewing the previous night's recordings, Helena watched herself go through her evening routine. Dinner, shower, reading in bed, lights out at 11:47 p.m. The cameras showed nothing unusual until 2:23 a.m., when the feed suddenly switched to static. For exactly 47 minutes, every camera recorded nothing but gray snow. At 3:10 a.m., the feeds returned to normal, showing her apartment exactly as before. Except it wasn't exactly as before. Helena fast-forwarded through the morning footage, comparing it to her memories. Her kitchen knife block had been rotated 90 degrees. The living room magazines were now arranged in chronological order instead of random stacks. Most disturbingly, her laptop had been moved from the coffee table to the dining room table, and it was showing signs of having been used. The screen was warm. The browser history had new entries. Someone had spent nearly an hour in her apartment, moving freely while she slept, and somehow managed to disable professional-grade security equipment. Helena called the security company. The technician, Carlos, arrived within 2 hours, looking genuinely puzzled as he examined the system. "Ma'am, this is impossible. The cameras have battery backups, independent power sources. For all of them to go to static simultaneously would require either an EMP device or someone with intimate knowledge of our system's vulnerabilities. Could someone hack it remotely? Not without leaving traces. And look here." Carlos pointed to diagnostic data on his tablet. The system shows no interruption. According to the logs, the cameras never stopped recording. It's like the static exists only in the actual footage, not in the system's memory. That afternoon, Helena conducted a more thorough search of her apartment. In her bedroom closet, behind winter coats she rarely touched, she found a small digital recorder, no bigger than a matchbox. The device was sophisticated, with a memory card containing dozens of audio files. Helena plugged the recorder into her laptop with trembling hands. The first file was labeled Helena_sleep_talk_01 and contained 20 minutes of her unconscious murmurs and occasional words. The second file was Helena_phone_Martinez and contained her entire conversation with her therapist from the previous week, a private session she'd conducted from her apartment. But the third file made her blood freeze. Helena_conversation_kitchen_unknown contained what sounded like a complete conversation between Helena and an unidentified male voice. She listened to herself discussing her childhood fears, her marriage's failure, her deepest insecurities, intimate details she'd never shared with anyone. The problem was, Helena had no memory of this conversation ever taking place. The male voice was cultured, patient, asking probing questions with the skill of a trained therapist. Helena's recorded voice responded naturally, as if she were completely comfortable with this person. "Tell me about the nightmares, Helena. The ones we are buried alive. They started after my parents died. I dream I'm in a coffin, but I can hear people talking above ground. They don't know I'm still alive." "And how does that make you feel about trust? About people's ability to truly see you?" Helena stopped the recording, her hands shaking. She'd never told anyone about those specific nightmares. Yet here was audio evidence of her discussing them in detail with a stranger in her own kitchen, with no memory of the encounter. Either she was losing her mind, or someone had developed a way to access her unconscious thoughts, to conduct conversations with her while she was in some kind of altered state. Her phone rang, interrupting her terrified analysis. "Dr. Carvalho, you found my little recording device. I hope the contents were illuminating." Dr. Marcus Volkov's voice was calm, almost kindly. "What did you do to me?" "I simply had a conversation. Your mind is remarkably open during certain sleep states. So willing to share, so trusting. We've had several lovely chats over the past few weeks." Helena's world tilted. "That's impossible." "Is it? You're a forensic psychologist, doctor. You understand how vulnerable the human mind can be, how easily memories can be suppressed, altered, or accessed through the right techniques." The line went dead, leaving Helena alone with the horrible realization that her mind, her most private thoughts, were no longer her own. Chapter 6. The Web Tightens. Helena arrived at her office that morning to find chaos. Files scattered across her desk, patient confidentiality forms mixed with personal documents, and sitting prominently in the center, a thick manila folder labeled Helena Carvalho, case study number 847. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The dossier was comprehensive, disturbing in its detail. Medical records from her childhood, including a psychiatric evaluation after her parents' death that she'd forgotten about. Credit reports, bank statements, employment history going back to graduate school. But most unsettling were the psychological profiles, written in clinical language that assessed her personality traits, fears, and behavioral patterns with surgical precision. Subject demonstrates classic patterns of hypervigilance, developed following parental loss at age 15. Compensatory behaviors include professional overachievement and emotional isolation. Primary fears center on abandonment and loss of control. Recommend gradual introduction of systematic stressors to observe adaptation mechanisms. The analysis continued for 12 pages, dissecting her psyche like a laboratory specimen. Helena recognized the handwriting in the margins, the same precise script from the note about Ricardo Mendez. Her receptionist, Maria, appeared in the doorway. "Dr. Carvalho, your 9 a.m. appointment canceled, but there's a gentleman here who says he needs to speak with you urgently. He says it's about your security concerns." Helena's blood chilled. Did he give his name? Dr. Marcus Volkov. He's in the conference room. Against every instinct screaming danger, Helena walked to the conference room. Dr. Volkov sat with his back to the door, studying framed certificates on the wall. He was impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his silver hair perfectly groomed. "Dr. Carvalho, thank you for seeing me without an appointment." He turned, revealing pale eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of her appearance. I thought it was time we had a proper professional consultation. Get out of my office. Oh, but we have so much to discuss. Your patient Ricardo Mendez, for instance. Such a troubled man. Did you know he embezzled nearly $50,000 from his company? The guilt was eating him alive. Helena remained standing near the door. I don't discuss my patients with unauthorized individuals. Unauthorized. Dr. Volkov smiled, producing a leather portfolio. I think you'll find my credentials are quite comprehensive. He spread documents across the conference table. Licenses, certifications, hospital affiliations, all bearing official seals and signatures. Everything appeared legitimate, yet Helena knew they had to be forgeries. What do you want? To help you, of course. You see, Helena, may I call you Helena? You've become a most interesting case study. Your response to systematic psychological pressure has been fascinating to observe. You've been terrorizing me. I've been studying you. There's a difference, though I understand why you might confuse the two. Dr. Volkov stood, moving closer. The human mind is remarkably adaptable. Apply the right stressors in the correct sequence, and you can map a person's psychological architecture with remarkable precision. Helena backed toward the door, but Dr. Volkov continued speaking as if delivering a lecture. Take your childhood trauma, for instance. Loss of parents in a car accident, subsequent development of anxiety disorders, compulsive need to understand and predict human behavior. It all led you, quite naturally, to forensic psychology, didn't it? How do you know about my parents? I know everything about you, Helena. Your first panic attack at age 16. Your marriage to David, a safe choice, emotionally distant, doomed to fail because you couldn't risk true intimacy. Your decision to specialize in criminal psychology as a way of understanding the unpredictable nature of human violence. Each revelation hit like physical blow. These were details she'd shared with no one, thoughts she'd barely acknowledged to herself. But here's what's truly fascinating, Dr. Volkov continued. Despite all your professional training, all your understanding of psychological manipulation, you've followed my planned sequence of responses almost perfectly. The security cameras, the isolation, the desperate search for allies, all entirely predictable. He reached into his jacket and placed a final document on the table. It was a treatment plan, dated 3 months ago, outlining a systematic program of psychological conditioning. Helena's name was listed as the subject. Our work together is just beginning, Helena. You see, I don't just study the mind, I reshape it. And yours has such interesting potential. Dr. Volkov walked past her toward the door, pausing to whisper, Your 2 p.m. appointment canceled as well. In fact, you'll find that your calendar is surprisingly free for the next few weeks. Patients have been rescheduling, citing various emergencies. Remarkable coincidence, wouldn't you say? Helena checked her appointment system as soon as he left. Dr. Volkov was right. Every appointment for the next month had been canceled or rescheduled, all within the past 24 hours. Her professional life, like her personal security, was being systematically dismantled. And somewhere in the growing paranoia and isolation, Helena realized she was dancing to the rhythm of someone else. Chapter 7, Unlikely Allies. The private investigator sitting across from Helena in the small cafe looked nothing like she'd expected. Samuel Borges was compact and weathered, with graying hair and intelligent dark eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of their surroundings. His handshake was firm, professional. Dr. Carvalho, thank you for agreeing to meet. I know this situation must be overwhelming. Helena studied his credentials carefully. Licensed investigator, former police detective, specializing in missing persons cases. Everything appeared legitimate, but she'd learned not to trust appearances. You said on the phone that you're investigating Ricardo Mendez's disappearance. Among others, Samuel opened a tablet and showed her a list of names. 12 people have disappeared or died under suspicious circumstances after contact with the man calling himself Dr. Marcus Volkov. The pattern goes back 15 years. Helena scanned the list. These are from different cities, different countries. Exactly. Chicago, Toronto, Mexico City, and now Sao Paulo. Always the same methodology. He establishes himself in an upscale neighborhood, targets mental health professionals or their patients, and begins his psychological experiments. Samuel swiped to a new screen showing newspaper clippings and police reports. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, psychiatrist in Chicago, found dead in her office from an apparent suicide, except she'd been receiving the same kind of harassment you've described for months before her death. Dr. Carlos Mendoza in Mexico City simply disappeared along with 3 of his patients. But why target mental health professionals? Because you understand the mind better than most people. You make more interesting subjects for his research. Samuel's expression darkened, and you have access to vulnerable patients who won't be missed as quickly. Helena felt sick. You think he's using me to get to my patients? I think you were never the primary target, Dr. Carvalho. I think you're the tool he's using to access a larger pool of subjects. Samuel showed her another document. I've been tracking his real identity for 3 years. His name isn't Marcus Volkov. It's Mikhail Petrov, former psychiatric researcher with the Soviet military. The photograph on the screen showed a younger version of the man Helena knew, wearing a military uniform with Cyrillic text beneath. The report was in Russian, but Samuel had included a translation. Dr. Mikhail Petrov, specialist in interrogation psychology and mind control techniques, disappeared from Moscow in 1991 after allegations of conducting illegal experiments on military prisoners, believed to have fled to the West with stolen research data. Helena stared at the image. He's been doing this for over 30 years, and getting better at it. The early cases were crude, obvious coercion, physical intimidation, but his methods have become increasingly sophisticated. Now he can manipulate someone's entire reality without them realizing it's happening. Samuel closed the tablet and leaned forward. Dr. Carvalho, I need you to understand something. Every person on that list thought they could handle him alone. They all believed they were smart enough, strong enough, to resist his methods. They were all wrong. Then what do you suggest? We work together. I have resources, contacts in law enforcement, ways to verify information. You have psychological expertise and direct access to his current operation. Together, we might be able to stop him before he disappears again and starts this cycle somewhere else. Helena felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. What's your plan? Samuel was about to respond when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped away from the table, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. When he returned, his entire demeanor had changed. Dr. Carvalho, I'm going to need to cut this meeting short. There's been a development. What kind of development? Samuel gathered his materials quickly. Someone sent photographs to my ex-wife. Pictures of our daughter walking to school, playing in our backyard, sleeping in her bedroom. The message was very clear. Stop investigating Mikhail Petrov, or my family will pay the price. Helena's heart sank. Even her potential ally was being neutralized by Dr. Volkov's reach. Samuel, I'm sorry. I never meant to put your family at risk. This isn't your fault, but I need to get my daughter somewhere safe before we can continue. He handed her a business card. There's a secure phone number on the back. Don't use your regular phone to call. He's likely monitoring all your communications. Give me 48 hours to secure my family. Then we'll figure out how to take this bastard down. After Samuel left, Helena sat alone in the cafe, watching pedestrians pass by the window. Any one of them could be watching her, reporting back to Dr. Volkov. Her brief moment of hope was dissolving into deeper isolation. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Dr. Carvalho, I do hope your meeting with Mr. Borges was productive. Such a devoted father. It would be unfortunate if his daughter had to pay for his poor choices. MP. Even the false identity was abandoned now. Mikhail Petrov was done hiding. Helena realized that anyone who tried to help her became a target. Anyone who got close to the truth put themselves and their loved ones in danger. She was truly alone, facing a predator who had spent decades perfecting the art of psychological warfare. and the game was just beginning. Chapter 8. The Mind Game. The call came at exactly 3 a.m., jerking Helena from restless sleep. Dr. Volkov's voice was calm, almost paternal. "Helena, I hope I didn't wake you." "Well, actually, I hope I did. Sleep deprivation enhances cognitive flexibility, makes the mind more receptive to new possibilities." Helena sat up in bed, instantly alert. "What do you want?" "To propose a game. A test of your professional ethics against your personal attachments. You see, I have acquired 3 subjects for demonstration." Helena's blood chilled. "What subjects?" "Your friend Laura Santini, who you tried so desperately to meet. Your former patient Ricardo Mendez, who proved surprisingly resilient to standard conditioning techniques. And a delightful young woman named Sofia Borges, age 12, who has such expressive eyes when she's frightened." "Samuel's daughter." Helena gripped the phone tighter. "You're lying." "Am I? Let me provide some verification." The sound changed, as if the call was being transferred. A young girl's voice came through, shaky but defiant. "Dr. Carvalho, this is Sofia. My dad showed me your picture. The man says he won't hurt me if you do what he asks, but I don't think." The line switched back to Dr. Volkov. "Sufficient proof. Now, here are the rules of our game. I will provide you with 3 locations. At each location, you will find one of my subjects, along with a choice. Save them, and someone you care about will pay the price. Ignore them, and they will die, but your loved ones remain safe." Helena was already reaching for clothes, her mind racing through possibilities. This is insane. What kind of choice? The fundamental choice that defines human morality. Helena. Self-interest versus altruism. The needs of strangers versus the protection of those we love. As a forensic psychologist, surely you've wondered where those boundaries lie. Dr. Volkov's voice took on a lecturing tone. Location 1. The abandoned warehouse at Rua do Comercio 847. Laura Santini is there, along with detailed instructions. Complete the task I've prepared, and your sister Carmen will receive a very unpleasant visit tonight. Helena froze. Carmen lived in Rio de Janeiro, worked as a teacher, had no connection to this situation. How do you know about my sister? Location 2. The construction site on Avenida Paulista, Building C, 3rd floor. Ricardo Mendez awaits, though he's not quite the man you remember. Save him, and something unfortunate will happen to Samuel Borges. I believe he's grown rather fond of having 10 fingers. The clinical detachment in Dr. Volkov's voice was more terrifying than anger would have been. This was methodology, not madness. Location 3. The subway tunnel maintenance area beneath Estacio de Se. Young Sofia is such a brave child, but everyone has their breaking point. Rescue her, and your ex-husband David will discover that brake failure can be so tragically unpredictable. Helena was already grabbing her car keys. You're sick. I'm thorough. Oh, and Helena, you have until sunrise. That gives you approximately 4 hours to make 3 impossible choices. I'll be monitoring your progress, of course. And do remember, every decision you make will be recorded, analyzed, and added to your psychological profile. The line went dead. Helena stood in her apartment, mind reeling. 3 locations, 3 people in danger, 3 threats against people she cared about. The logistics alone seemed impossible. The locations were spread across the city, each at least 30 minutes apart, unless that was part of the test. Force her to choose not just between strangers and loved ones, but between the victims themselves. Make her decide who was worth saving and who would be sacrificed. She grabbed her phone to call the police, then stopped. Dr. Volkov had demonstrated an ability to monitor her communications, to anticipate her every move. If she involved law enforcement, he might simply kill all 3 subjects and disappear. Helena started with the closest location, the warehouse on Rua do Comercio. As she drove through the empty streets, her phone buzzed with a text. I can see you driving, Helena. Your heart rate is elevated. Your hands are shaking. Fascinating physiological responses. Remember, I'm watching everything. The warehouse was a hulking shadow against the night sky. Helena found an unlocked side door, just as Dr. Volkov had promised. Inside, emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across empty spaces filled with abandoned machinery. Laura Santini was tied to a chair in the center of the main floor, conscious, but clearly drugged. Next to her stood a table with a syringe, a vial of clear liquid, and typed instructions. Helena. Laura's voice was slurred. He said you'd come. Said you'd have to choose. Helena read the instructions with growing horror. Inject the subject with the provided solution. It will cause temporary paralysis and memory loss, but she will live. Refuse, and the photographs I've prepared will be delivered to your sister Carmen's school, along with evidence of her tax evasion. Her career will be destroyed, her children's futures ruined. The choice was designed to break her, commit a crime against an innocent person, or watch her sister's life be destroyed by carefully fabricated evidence. Helena looked at Laura, at the syringe, at the clock showing 3:47 a.m. Time was running out, and two more impossible choices awaited. Chapter 9, Fragments of Reality. The construction site on Avenida Paulista was a maze of concrete and steel, half-finished floors open to the night air. Helena found Ricardo on the third floor, but something was terribly wrong. He looked exactly as she remembered. Same height, same build, same nervous mannerisms. But when he spoke, his voice was different, flatter, as if he were reading from script. Dr. Carvalho, you came. I knew you would. You always try to save everyone. His movements were mechanical, puppet-like, but I'm not real anymore. He made me into something else. Helena approached cautiously. Ricardo's eyes were dilated and focused. Ricardo, it's me. Helena, your therapist. Do you remember our sessions? I remember everything and nothing. I remember being Ricardo Mendez, executive, anxiety patient. But I also remember being David Santos, construction worker, and Maria Silva, housewife, and Joao Pereira, student. His voice never changed inflection. So many identities, all equally real, all equally false. On a nearby table, Helena found Dr. Volkov's instructions for this location. The subject has undergone experimental identity fragmentation therapy. Choose which personality will become dominant. Choose incorrectly, and he will remain trapped in this confused state forever. Choose to leave him, and Samuel Borges loses a finger every hour until sunrise. But as Helena stared at Ricardo, a horrible realization crept over her. The lighting was wrong, too bright, too focused. The concrete around them was too clean, too new. And when she looked closely at Ricardo's face, she could see the slight distortion of digital manipulation. You're not real, she whispered. Ricardo's image flickered, becoming pixelated around the edges. Very good, Dr. Carvalho. But does it matter? If you can't tell the difference between reality and simulation, what difference does it make? Helena spun around, looking for cameras, projectors, anything that would explain what she was seeing. Her phone rang. Excellent deduction, Helena. You're quite right. That Ricardo is a digital construct created from hours of video I recorded during our sessions together. The real Ricardo is, well, that's not important right now. Where is he? The more relevant question is, where are you? Look around carefully, Helena. Use those forensic skills. Helena examined her surroundings with professional detachment, pushing aside panic to focus on details. The construction site was too perfect, too conveniently arranged. The concrete showed no signs of weather exposure. The steel beams were clean, free of rust or construction debris. I'm not really here either, am I? Now you're beginning to understand. Reality is so much more fluid than most people realize. When I visited you during your sleep states, I didn't just have conversations. I mapped your neural pathways, your perceptual patterns, your deepest fears and expectations. The construction site began to dissolve around Helena, walls becoming transparent, Ricardo's image fading completely. She was standing in a stark white room filled with sophisticated equipment, computers, monitors, headsets, and what looked like a hospital bed. Welcome to reality, Helena. Or perhaps this is just another layer of simulation. How can you be certain? Helena's legs gave out, and she sank to the floor. Everything, the warehouse, Laura, the construction site, Ricardo, could have been elaborate virtual reality scenarios, but the implications were staggering. How long have I been here? Does it matter? What matters is that your mind is responding beautifully to the stimuli. Every choice you make, every emotional response, every attempt at resistance, it's all data from my research. Helena tried to remember driving to the warehouse, but the memories felt thin, insubstantial. Had she ever left her apartment? Was she even awake? The final location, Helena. Young Sophia needs your help. But ask yourself, is she real? Am I real? Are you? The white room faded, replaced by the damp darkness of subway tunnels. Helena could hear a child crying somewhere in the distance, echoing off tiled walls. But now she questioned everything. The sound, the location, her own perceptions. If Dr. Volkov could create perfect simulations of people and places, if he could access her mind while she slept, then reality itself had become unreliable. Helena pressed forward through the tunnel, following the sound of Sophia's cries, no longer certain whether she was trying to save a real child or participating in an elaborate psychological experiment. The only thing she knew for certain was that her grip on reality was slipping away, exactly as Dr. Volkov had planned. Chapter 10. The Truth Buried. The subway tunnel stretched endlessly ahead, lit by flickering emergency lights that cast dancing shadows on tiled walls. Sophia's cries echoed from somewhere in the darkness, but Helena moved cautiously now, analyzing every detail for signs of deception. The child was real enough, 12 years old, tied to a maintenance pipe, tears streaming down her face. But Helena noticed inconsistencies. Sophia's clothes were too clean for someone who'd been kidnapped. Her tears fell in perfectly symmetrical patterns, and her voice had a slightly artificial quality, like a high-quality audio recording. Helena knelt beside the girl anyway. Real or simulated? The scenario demanded action. Sophia, I'm Dr. Carvalho. Your father sent me to find you. He's not my father, Sophia said, her voice suddenly mature, adult-like. My father is dead, has been for 15 years. Helena jerked back. What? The tunnel around them began to shift and dissolve, like a movie set being struck. Sophia's image became translucent, revealing the white room beneath. But this time, Helena noticed something else, filing cabinets lining the walls, filled with thick folders. Her own voice echoed from speakers hidden in the ceiling. Dr. Petrov, I don't understand why you're showing me these images. My parents died in a car accident when I was 15. A younger version of Dr. Volkov's voice responded. Helena, you're experiencing recovered memory therapy. These sessions will help you remember what really happened that night. Helena staggered toward the filing cabinets. The folders were labeled with dates going back 15 years. Session notes, psychological evaluations, medical records, all bearing her name. She pulled out a thick file labeled Patient 001, Helena Carvalho, initial intake, and began reading with growing horror. Subject presents with severe trauma, following witnessing of parents' murder. Memory suppression protocols, successfully implemented. Subject now believes deaths were accidental. Recommend continued observation and periodic reinforcement sessions. Helena's hands shook as she read further. Page after page documented psychological manipulation, memory implantation, behavioral conditioning. The sessions described in the files matched perfectly with the conversations she'd found recorded in her apartment. But according to these records, those conversations hadn't taken place over recent weeks. They'd been happening for 15 years. Hello, Helena. Dr. Volkov entered the white room through a door she hadn't noticed before. But he looked different, older, more weathered, as if the youthful appearance she remembered had been another illusion. My parents, they weren't killed in a car accident, were they? No. They discovered my research facility, threatened to expose my work to the authorities. I had them eliminated, but you witnessed the entire event, a traumatic memory that needed to be managed. Helena sank to the floor, overwhelmed. You've been controlling my mind for 15 years. Not controlling, studying. You were my first successful long-term subject, Helena. I've been documenting how completely fabricated memories can reshape a personality, how artificial experiences can create authentic emotional responses. Dr. Volkov gestured to monitors showing brain scans, psychological profiles, behavioral analyses. Your entire adult life has been a carefully orchestrated experiment. Your choice of career, your marriage, your divorce, even your patience, all guided by subtle suggestions implanted during our sessions. The other victims, Ricardo, Laura, all real people, all part of the extended study. Ricardo was conditioned to seek you out as a therapist. Laura was programmed to contact you when I activated her conditioning. Samuel Borges is a genuine private investigator, but he's been fed information designed to bring him into contact with you at precisely the right moment. Helena stared at the files, at the evidence of her stolen life. Why tell me now? Why reveal the truth? Because we've reached the final phase of the experiment. I need to document how a subject responds when all illusions are stripped away, when they confront the complete fabrication of their reality. Dr. Volkov smiled coldly. You see, Helena, even this conversation, this revelation, is just another layer of the study. So nothing I remember is real. Some memories are authentic. Your childhood before your parents' death, certain emotional responses, core personality traits, those survived the conditioning. But everything else, your entire adult identity, has been carefully constructed. Helena looked around the white room, at the equipment, at the files documenting her stolen life. How many others? Your patient 001, the prototype. There have been 846 subjects since then, each building on what I learned from you. But you remain the most successful case, the most completely integrated false reality. Dr. Volkov approached her with something that might have been kindness in his expression. I'm proud of you, Helena. You've been an extraordinary subject, and your data has advanced our understanding of human consciousness immeasurably. Helena stared at him, then at the files, then at her own hands. Were even her physical responses real, or just another programmed reaction? The terrible truth was settling over her. She couldn't trust her own mind, her own memories, her own perceptions. After 15 years of systematic manipulation, Helena Carvalho wasn't sure who she really was anymore. Chapter 11, Violent Memories. The memories returned like physical blows, each one tearing through the carefully constructed barriers Dr. Volkov had built in Helena's mind. She doubled over in the white room, clutching her head as 15 years of suppressed truth crashed over her. She was 8 years old again, hiding in her bedroom closet while strange men searched the house below. Her father's voice, desperate and angry. I have documentation of everything you've done, Petrov. The unauthorized experiments, the missing patients, the deaths. If anything happens to my family. A gunshot. Her mother's scream. Then silence. No, 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 Helena whispered, but the memories kept coming. She was creeping down the stairs, needing to find her parents, needing to make sure they were safe. The living room bathed in red light from overturned lamps. Her father on the floor, eyes open but empty. Her mother crumpled near the kitchen doorway, reaching toward a telephone she'd never reach. And standing over them, a younger Dr. Mikhail Petrov, methodically wiping blood from his hands with her mother's dish towel. He'd looked up and seen her on the stairs. Their eyes met across the carnage of her childhood. Hello, little Helena. You shouldn't have seen that. Helena jerked back to the present, tears streaming down her face. Dr. Volkov was watching her with clinical interest, making notes on a tablet. Excellent. The memory barriers are dissolving right on schedule. How do you feel? You monster. You killed them in front of me. I eliminated a threat to my research. Your parents were going to destroy decades of work, ruin the lives of countless subjects who were benefiting from my treatments. His voice remained calm, professorial. You were unfortunate collateral damage. More memories surfaced. The weeks following her parents' death, living with her Aunt Carmen while attending grief counseling sessions with Dr. Petrov. He'd been so kind, so understanding, helping her process the trauma of the car accident. I made it painless, Helena. You could have lived your entire life believing your parents died in a simple traffic collision. You could have had a normal childhood, a normal life. Except it was all a lie. All lives are constructed from lies. Small fictions we tell ourselves to function. I simply took a more active role in crafting your particular narrative. Helena forced herself to stand, to think through the rage and grief. Why keep me alive at all? Why not just kill me with them? Because you represented an unprecedented opportunity. A young mind, highly intelligent, experiencing maximum trauma at a crucial developmental stage. I could study the long-term effects of complete memory replacement, the malleability of human identity. Dr. Volkov showed her brain scans from different time periods. Look at these neurological changes. 15 years of careful conditioning have literally rewired your neural pathways. You've become a different person at the cellular level. But as Helena stared at the scans, her forensic training kicked in. She'd spent years studying brain imaging, understanding how trauma and memory worked. Something was wrong with Dr. Volkov's data. These scans don't match, she said quietly. I beg your pardon? Helena pointed to inconsistencies in the brain images. The baseline scans you claim are from when I was 8, show developmental patterns consistent with someone much older. And these recent scans, the temporal lobe activity doesn't match someone with suppressed memories. Dr. Volkov's expression shifted slightly. You're overanalyzing. No, I'm doing what you trained me to do. Analyze evidence objectively. Helena's voice grew stronger. These brain scans aren't mine, are they? They're from different subjects, maybe different studies entirely. She grabbed more files from the cabinets, speed reading through psychological evaluations and medical records. The documentation was extensive but inconsistent. Details that contradicted other details, timelines that didn't align, even basic facts about her own life that she knew were wrong. My sister Carmen isn't my aunt. My parents died when I was 15, not 8. I did witness something traumatic, but not their murder. Helena looked up at Dr. Volkov, seeing him clearly for the first time. You're lying about everything, aren't you? Dr. Volkov's calm demeanor cracked slightly. The specifics are less important than the psychological impact. The specifics are everything. Helena threw the files down. You want me to believe I've been your victim for 15 years, that my entire life is fabricated, but the evidence doesn't support that conclusion. She began pacing, her analytical mind taking control. The brain scans are fake. The session notes contain information any skilled researcher could have gathered through observation and public records. Even this white room, it's just a basement or warehouse space dressed up to look like a high-tech laboratory. Helena examined the equipment more closely. Behind the impressive facades, she found consumer-grade electronics, props designed to look sophisticated but lacking real functionality. You're not some master manipulator who's controlled my mind for years. You're just a skilled con artist who's very good at psychological manipulation. The question is, why go to all this trouble to make me believe otherwise? Dr. Volkov had recovered his composure, but Helena could see calculation in his eyes now instead of confidence. Perhaps, he said slowly, you're more resilient than I anticipated. Helena smiled grimly. Or perhaps your entire methodology is based on bullshit and pseudoscience. Either way, I'm done being afraid of you. But even as she spoke the words, Helena couldn't shake the feeling that she was still missing something crucial, that the truth was more complex than either version of events suggested. Chapter 12, The Mirror. The white room suddenly felt smaller, more oppressive. Helena's moment of analytical clarity was interrupted by the sound of footsteps echoing from somewhere behind the false walls. Multiple sets of footsteps, moving with purpose. Ah, Dr. Volkov said, checking his watch. Right on schedule. Helena, I'd like you to meet someone. A section of the wall slid away, revealing a hidden entrance. Through it stepped a woman who looked exactly like Helena. Same height, same build, same facial features. But where Helena wore jeans and a sweater, This woman was dressed in an elegant business suit, her hair styled differently, her posture more confident. "Hello, Helena," the woman said, her voice identical to Helena's own. "I'm Marina." Helena stared in shock. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Dr. Volkov seemed pleased by Helena's reaction. "Meet your twin sister, separated at birth and raised in completely different circumstances. While you were living your carefully monitored life, Marina was living hers, equally monitored, but under different conditions." Marina smiled, but there was something unsettling about the expression. "I've been watching you for years, sister. Through cameras, through reports, through Dr. Volkov sessions. You're exactly what I expected. Weak, emotional, predictable." "We're not twins," Helena said, but even as she spoke, she was noting the uncanny similarities. "I don't have any siblings. According to your fabricated memories, correct. But Marina here has very different memories of your shared childhood." Dr. Volkov gestured between them like a proud parent. "You see, I didn't just study individual psychological manipulation. I studied comparative manipulation. How do identical genetics respond to different environmental conditioning?" Marina approached Helena, studying her like a specimen. "I remember our parents too, Helena. But in my memories, you were the one who betrayed them to Dr. Volkov. You were the one who told him about Father's plans to expose the research." "That's not true." "How can you be certain? If Dr. Volkov can implant false memories, how do you know which memories are real?" Marina's voice was Helena's voice, but colder, more calculating. "I've spent 15 years believing you were responsible for our parents' death. I've built a life around the desire for revenge against my treacherous sister." Dr. Volkov was making notes again, documenting their interaction. Fascinating. Two subjects with identical genetics, but opposite psychological conditioning. Helena was programmed to be the victim, Marina to be the aggressor. The question now is, when confronted with each other, which personality type will dominate? Helena backed away from Marina, her mind racing. The physical resemblance was too perfect to be coincidental, but the timeline didn't make sense. "If we're really twins, where have you been my entire life?" "Living in Sao Paulo, actually, just across town, building a career in corporate psychology while you were playing with criminal minds." Marina pulled out a tablet, showing surveillance photos. "I've been documenting your life, your habits, your weaknesses." Dr. Volkov wanted comprehensive data on both subjects. The photos showed Helena at work, at home, during private moments she thought were unobserved. Years of surveillance, systematic stalking disguised as research. "But here's the beautiful part," Marina continued. "Dr. Volkov has been programming us both for this moment. You were conditioned to seek truth and justice, to protect the innocent. I was conditioned to value power and control, to eliminate threats." Helena saw where this was heading. "He wants us to fight." "More than that," Dr. Volkov interjected. "The final phase of the experiment requires one of you to kill the other. 15 years of psychological conditioning have brought us to this point. Which set of programmed responses will prove stronger?" Marina reached into her jacket and withdrew a knife. "I've been looking forward to this, sister. Finally, I can make you pay for what you did to our family." But Helena was studying Marina's movements, her expressions, her vocal patterns. Something was wrong. The resemblance was perfect, but the behavior was too controlled, too precise. "You're not my sister," Helena said quietly. Marina's confident expression flickered for just a moment. "Of course I am. We share the same DNA, the same fabricated memories of events that never happened." Helena felt pieces clicking into place. "Dr. Volkov, you're brilliant, but you have one critical flaw: you overplan. This entire scenario is too elaborate, too perfectly constructed." She gestured at Marina. "This woman might look like me, but she's not my twin. She's someone you've surgically altered and psychologically conditioned to believe. She's my sister. The photos, the surveillance, the memories, all planted to support the illusion." Dr. Volkov's mask slipped completely. "You're reaching, Helena." "Am I?" Because I remember something you didn't account for. When I was 7, I broke my left wrist falling from a tree. The bone healed with a slight deformity that shows up on x-rays. Helena looked at Marina. If we're identical twins, she'll have the same bone structure, the same old injury. Marina's hand moved unconsciously to her left wrist. I don't remember breaking my wrist. Because it never happened to you. You're not Helena's twin. You're another victim of Dr. Volkov's manipulation, surgically and psychologically altered to serve his experimental needs. The knife trembled in Marina's hand as doubt crept into her eyes. But I remember everything about our childhood. Implanted memories, just like he tried to implant false memories in me. Helena stepped closer to Marina, recognizing the confusion and fear beneath the aggressive conditioning. We're both his victims. The question is, are we going to kill each other like he programmed us to do, or are we going to work together to stop him? Dr. Volkov was backing toward the hidden door. The experiment isn't over. Yes, Helena said firmly. It is. Chapter 13, The Laboratory. Dr. Volkov's retreat was cut short by steel doors, slamming shut across all the exits. Emergency lighting bathed the white room in red, and a mechanical voice announced, "Laboratory lockdown initiated. All subjects secure." "What's happening?" Marina asked, the knife forgotten in her confusion. Dr. Volkov's composed facade cracked completely. "This isn't part of the protocol. Someone has triggered the security system." Helena examined the sealed doors, noting their industrial construction. "This isn't just a basement, is it? We're in an actual research facility." "Welcome to Sublevel 7, came a voice over the intercom. But it wasn't Dr. Volkov speaking. It was Samuel Borges. "Dr. Carvalho, I hope you can hear me. I've got control of the building's security system." Relief flooded through Helena. "Samuel, how did you find us?" "Been tracking Volkov for 3 days. Turns out your apartment building has 5 sub-basements that don't appear on any public records. This whole complex is a private research facility, completely off the books." Through the intercom, they could hear Samuel moving through the building. "Dr. Carvalho, you need to know, there are other people here. Lots of other people." Dr. Volkov had gone pale. "Samuel, if you interfere with my work..." "Your work?" Samuel's voice turned hard. "You mean the 23 people I've found locked in cells down here, including several who were reported missing over the past 5 years?" Helena stared at Dr. Volkov with new horror. "How many people have you been experimenting on?" "Medical research requires extensive data collection." "These aren't research subjects," Samuel interrupted. "They're prisoners. Some of them have been here for years, undergoing systematic psychological torture." The white room's walls suddenly became transparent, revealing that they were surrounded by observation windows. Behind the glass, Helena could see other rooms, other cells, and in some of them, people, sitting in corners, staring at walls, some talking to invisible companions. "My God," Marina whispered. "How many of us are there?" Dr. Volkov seemed to age before their eyes, his carefully maintained appearance crumbling. "You don't understand the significance of this work. The applications for treating severe mental illness, for rehabilitation of criminals, for torture," Helena finished. "That's what this is, isn't it? Not research, torture disguised as science." Through one of the windows, Helena recognized a face that made her blood run cold. Ricardo Mendez sat in a small cell, but he looked nothing like the composed executive from her therapy sessions. He was thin, hollow-eyed, occasionally responding to voices only he could hear. "Ricardo's been here the whole time. Subject 23 has been undergoing intensive personality restructuring. His responses to various stimuli have provided valuable data about the flexibility of human identity." Helena felt sick. "You drove him insane. I'm exploring the boundaries of consciousness. Each subject contributes to our understanding of how the mind can be modified, improved, controlled." Dr. Volkov's voice took on a manic quality. "Imagine the applications: eliminating criminal behavior, curing mental illness, optimizing human performance. By destroying people's minds. By reshaping them. Look at Marina. I took a troubled young woman and transformed her into a confident, capable individual. Look at yourself. I helped you overcome childhood trauma and become a successful professional. Marina was staring through the windows at the other subjects. Those people aren't improved. They're broken. Some experiments fail. That's the nature of scientific progress. Samuel's voice crackled through the intercom. Dr. Carvalho, I'm going to override the door locks, but you need to be ready. Some of these subjects are in bad shape. They might not understand that we're trying to help them. The steel doors began to slide open with hydraulic hisses. Helena could hear sounds from the rest of the facility now, crying, mumbling, occasionally screaming. The cacophony of minds pushed past their breaking points. Helena, Dr. Volkov said urgently, you have to understand. I never meant to harm you. Everything I did was to help you process your trauma, to give you a better life. By lying to me, by stealing my memories, by keeping me under surveillance for years, by protecting you from unbearable pain. His composure finally shattered completely. Your parents' death nearly destroyed you. I saw a brilliant young mind teetering on the edge of complete psychological collapse. I saved you. Helena looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time saw not a monster, but a deeply disturbed man who had convinced himself that his cruelty was kindness. Dr. Volkov, she said quietly, what happened to you? What trauma are you running from that made you think this was acceptable? His face crumpled, and for a moment he looked like a lost child. I wanted to fix people. I wanted to take away their pain. By causing more pain, I didn't know how else to help. Helena realized that Dr. Volkov might be the most damaged subject in his own laboratory, a victim of his own psychological experimentation, convinced that his torture was therapy. But before she could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility, and Samuel's voice came over the intercom with new urgency. Dr. Carvalho, we have a problem. The building's on fire, and some of the subjects they're not responding rationally to the evacuation. Chapter 14, Resistance. Smoke began seeping into the white room as emergency sprinklers activated throughout the facility. Helena could hear chaos erupting in the corridors, screaming, running footsteps, and Samuel shouting instructions that weren't being followed. The subjects, Dr. Volkov said, his voice hollow with despair. Years of conditioning, they can't process unexpected situations. Their minds will retreat into defensive patterns. Helena grabbed his arm. What does that mean? They'll revert to their most deeply programmed behaviors. Some will become catatonic. Others will become violent. Most will simply hide and wait for instructions that will never come. Through the observation windows, Helena could see the truth of his words. Some subjects sat motionless in their cells despite the smoke and alarms. Others were attacking the walls, the doors, anything within reach. A few wandered in circles, following invisible patterns only they could see. We have to help them, Marina said, but her voice was shaky, uncertain. Helena studied Marina carefully. The surgical resemblance was perfect, but now that she was looking for it, she could see the subtle signs of conditioning. Micro-expressions that didn't quite match the emotions, responses that were too calculated, too perfect. Marina, what's your earliest real memory? Not the implanted ones about our childhood, but your actual first memory. Marina's facade cracked. I remember waking up in a hospital room. There were bandages on my face, and a man in a white coat telling me I'd been in an accident, that my face had been damaged and they'd had to reconstruct it. 3 years ago. But that can't be right, because I remember growing up, going to school, having a career. All implanted, Helena said gently. Dr. Volkov. Who was she originally? Dr. Volkov was staring at the chaos beyond the windows, his life's work literally going up in smoke. Subject 847. Isabella Santos, 25 years old, admitted for severe depression following the death of her fiancé. Her family thought she was receiving standard treatment. Marina Isabella staggered backward, My name is Isabella. I gave you a better life, a stronger identity. You were suicidal when you arrived here. I made you confident, capable. You stole my identity and turned me into a weapon against an innocent woman. Isabella's voice was cracking, childhood memories and adult conditioning warring in her mind. Samuel's voice cut through the intercom. The fire's spreading fast. We need to evacuate now. Dr. Carvalho, can you get the subjects to follow you? Helena looked through the windows at the 23 people trapped in their individual psychological hells. Some were banging on doors, others cowering in corners, all of them victims of the man standing beside her. Dr. Volkov, you created this situation. You're the only one they might listen to. Help us get them out. They won't trust me. Years of conditioning have made them dependent on routine, on predictable environments. This chaos will trigger every defense mechanism I've built into their minds. Helena grabbed his shoulders. Then we bypassed the conscious mind. What command structures did you implant? What responses are automatic? Dr. Volkov looked at her with something like respect. You really are remarkable, Helena. Even in crisis, you think like a psychologist. He moved to the intercom system. All subjects, this is Dr. Volkov. Code 7 is now in effect. Proceed to the primary assembly area for group therapy session. Throughout the facility, the chaos began to subside. Helena watched through the windows as subjects stopped their erratic behaviors and began moving with purpose toward the corridors. Code 7. Emergency evacuation protocol. Disguised as a routine therapy appointment. Their conditioning will compel them to gather in the main level lobby, which connects to the street exits. Samuel met them in the corridor, leading a group of disoriented but compliant subjects toward the stairwells. Helena recognized several faces, people who had been reported missing, patients from other therapists, individuals who had simply vanished from their lives. How long has this been going on? Samuel asked as they climbed toward ground level. 15 years. Dr. Volkov answered quietly. Started with Helena, expanded as I refined the techniques. Each success led to more ambitious experiments. They reached the main level as the first fire trucks arrived outside. Helena watched 23 victims of psychological torture stumble into the night air, blinking in confusion at a world they barely remembered. Isabella stood beside her, tears streaming down her surgically altered face. What happens to us now? How do we rebuild lives that were stolen from us? Helena took her hand. One memory at a time, one choice at a time, starting with choosing to survive. But as emergency responders separated the subjects for medical evaluation, Helena noticed Dr. Volkov quietly slipping away from the group. She followed him to the edge of the building's perimeter, where he stood watching his life's work burn. Planning to disappear again? Start over in another city with a new identity? Dr. Volkov shook his head. There's nowhere left to run, Helena, and no point. You've proven that the human spirit can't be completely broken, that some core of identity survives even the most sophisticated manipulation. Is that supposed to be an apology? It's supposed to be an acknowledgement. You succeeded where I failed. You held on to who you really are, despite everything I did to change you. Police sirens were getting closer. Dr. Volkov would be arrested, tried, probably spend the rest of his life in prison. His victims would face years of recovery, trying to separate real memories from implanted ones. Dr. Volkov, Helena said as officers approached. What you did was monstrous, but somewhere in your twisted methodology, you accidentally proved something important. What's that? That the human mind is more resilient than you ever imagined. That people can survive even the most systematic attempts to destroy their identity. That hope and love and truth are stronger than fear and manipulation. As the police led Dr. Volkov away, Helena realized that his greatest failure had been his greatest gift to her. Proof that she was stronger than her worst experiences, that her identity couldn't be stolen, no matter how skilled the thief. Chapter 15, Collapse. The psychiatric facility where Dr. Mikhail Petrov was being held looked nothing like his sophisticated laboratory. Stark white walls, barred windows, and the constant sound of shuffling feet in corridors designed for containment rather than research. Helena observed him through reinforced glass, noting the dramatic change in his appearance. The composed, manipulative predator had been replaced by a hollow shell of a man who alternated between personalities, like a broken radio switching between stations. "Dr. Petrov?" Helena spoke into the intercom. "Do you know who I am?" He looked up with vacant eyes. "Helena." Yes, your patient 001. My greatest success." His voice was childlike, excited. "Have you come for your session? We were making such progress with your memory restructuring." "No, I'm Dr. Helena Carvalho. I'm here to interview you about your crimes." His expression shifted completely, becoming hard and calculating. "Crimes? I saved lives, improved minds, advanced the field of psychology by decades. Those weren't crimes. They were necessary sacrifices for the greater good of science." Helena made notes as she watched him transition between personalities. The confident researcher, the frightened child, the cold predator. Each seemed genuinely unaware of the other's existence. "Which one of you killed my parents?" she asked quietly. His face went blank for a moment, then crumpled into the expression of a terrified 8-year-old. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Papa said I was helping, that the work was important, but the people screamed, and there was so much blood, and I just wanted it to stop." Helena leaned forward. This wasn't Dr. Petrov. This was someone else entirely, someone much younger. "What's your name?" "Mikhail. Mikhail Volkov. I'm 8 years old, and Papa says I have to watch the experiments so I can learn to help people when I grow up. But the people in the basement keep crying, and Papa gets angry when I try to give them water." Helena felt a chill of understanding. Your father was conducting experiments? "In Siberia. Papa was a doctor for the military. He said the prisoners were bad people, that we were making them better, but they looked so sad, and they begged me to help them escape." The personality shifted again, becoming the cold researcher Helena recognized. Enough of that nonsense. The boy understands nothing about the necessity of advancement through sacrifice. "How many personalities are there?" Helena asked. "As many as needed to survive. The frightened child who watched atrocities in Siberia, the dutiful son who learned to inflict them, the brilliant researcher who perfected them, the monster who enjoys them." His voice cycled through different tones and inflections. "Which one would you like to speak with today, Dr. Carvalho?" Helena spent 2 hours documenting the fragmented psyche of the man who had terrorized so many lives. What emerged was a picture of systematic childhood abuse disguised as scientific training, a boy conditioned to see human suffering as necessary data collection. Dr. Petrov was as much a victim as any of us, Helena told Samuel later over coffee. His father was conducting illegal human experiments during the Soviet era, using his own son as both witness and eventual participant. That doesn't excuse what he did to you and the others. No, it doesn't, but it explains the methodology. He was replicating his own childhood trauma on an industrial scale, convinced that he was helping people the same way his father convinced him that torture was therapy. Samuel reviewed Helena's notes. So the child personality is the original Mikhail. The researcher is the identity he created to cope with the guilt, and the monster is what emerged when the coping mechanisms failed. Essentially, he spent his entire adult life trying to prove that his father's methods were beneficial, that the suffering he witnessed and inflicted served a greater purpose. Every victim was an attempt to validate his own victimization. Helena closed the file on Dr. Petrov's case. The man would likely remain institutionalized for the rest of his life, cycling between personalities that each held fragments of shattered psyche. But his victims were healing. Isabella, she'd reclaimed her original name, was slowly recovering memories of her life before the surgical alteration and psychological conditioning. She'd reconnected with her family, though the relationship was complicated by 3 years of believing she was someone else entirely. Ricardo was in intensive therapy, working to separate his authentic identity from the multiple personalities Dr. Petrov had tried to implant. Progress was slow but encouraging. The other 21 victims were at various stages of recovery. Some had regained most of their original memories. Others might never fully separate truth from implanted fiction. But all of them were alive, free, and working to reclaim their stolen lives. "There's something else," Samuel said, producing a manila folder. "International investigators have been tracking Dr. Petrov's network. He wasn't working alone." Helena opened the folder to find photographs and documentation of other facilities, other researchers, other victims. The scope was staggering. Dozens of illegal laboratories across 6 countries. Hundreds of missing persons who might still be alive in underground facilities. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "I'm afraid so. But you've proven something important, Helena. You've shown that these victims can be saved, that recovery is possible even after years of psychological torture." Helena stared at the files, at the faces of people who might still be trapped in facilities, like the one she'd escaped. The work ahead would be enormous, dangerous, and likely consume years of her life. But for the first time since discovering Dr. Petrov watching her from across the courtyard, Helena felt truly free. Free from manipulation, free from lies, free from the prison of stolen memories. She was ready to help others find that same freedom.